Welcome. Glad you're joining us today on Dr. Teach Me to Parent. We have some very special guests for you today, and it's a very special program. You're going to like it, so make sure you call somebody. Tell them to tune in, kind of pick it up today, and listen along with us today as we look at the life of Jeremy and Marcy Pusey, who are in Germany. They're right here now on a kind of a furlough, but they work with the Black Forest Academy in Germany. And they're going to bring to us today some views and thoughts about the American family versus the German family and their own family. And we're going to look at family life kind of internationally a little bit today. And I'll introduce a little bit more about them later. But because they're school teachers and counselors, let me just put this quote for the day before you and put it in perspective, okay? A school is a building. Obviously, we all know that. But with tomorrow inside, and that's what we don't know or we don't think about. That's what school is. It's a building with tomorrow inside of it. And we all have our kids, and we all have hopes and aspirations for our kids in the future. And we depend heavily upon our schools. We depend heavily on our teachers, our school counselors, to have these kids become successful and have these kids become really well organized and well thoughtful and really be productive. And so we have to kind of think of a school as just more than a building, some place you send your kids, where the kids spend their day. We got to think beyond that. We got to look at the school as tomorrow inside of it, okay? Okay, now thanks for joining us. And let me ask the Puseys a question, okay? Jeremy and Marcy, your own family. How did you grow up? What was the kind of the nature of your two families, and then we'll kind of look at your marriage, but tell us about your family, how you grew up. What was unique about it?
Well, we both had a different experience, of course. Every marriage has that dynamic. I grew up in you could say, a multilingual, multi-ethnic, multinational home. My dad is a Colombian national, and my mom met him back in the 70s and got married, and she's from Nebraska. So
Columbia and Nebraska.
Yeah, needless to say, it was two different people intermingling, two different sets of parenting styles, two different sets of cultures, expectations. So that's kind of how I grew up.
So that was emphasized. You had basically two cultures.
Yeah.
Was it one culture, the dominant culture? Were you more Colombian? Or were you more Americanized or Nebraskan, if you will?
Well, that's a good question. I was born in Bogota, Colombia, but because of the Civil War and the dynamics at that time, my mom just could not handle it psychologically. Mm-hmm. So they had been planning on staying in one country for the rest of their lives, but they both came back and migrated to the United States, where I started kindergarten and lived. So your schooling and your early education was much more within the American context. Which was different. Yeah. What happened in about 5th grade, though, is I went back to Colombia only with my dad and my sister, and then I had this whole Colombian experience. So my upbringing was
a little bit of both.
A little bit of both, and I had to navigate that as a.
So the fact that you're in Germany is the same thing.
Yeah.
You got a little American, you got a little German.
Yeah. And the context of where we work with international students who are growing up in homes, growing up in sometimes up to 4 different countries in their childhood, speaking 4 or 5 different languages.
Yeah.
And so I find that this is an environment where I can use some of my past background to help kids navigate this difficult
rich life when you think in terms of what you've come from and what has fed into your life. Mm-hmm. And now you reproduce that, with a whole bunch of other kids from other women's cultures. How did you grow up?
Yeah, I was actually born on a military base.
Oh, you have military background. Okay.
Yep, Camp Pendleton. And my dad at the time was not a believer, and my mom was, but was sort of finding her way. Had come from an abusive family situation herself.
That's a story in itself, isn't it?
It is,
yes.
And trying to mother and father children when you weren't given good role models is difficult. So they did their best. When I was about 4 or 5, my parents separated, and so my mom was a single mom for 3 years with myself and my little sister, who was almost 5 years younger. And then after 3 years, he came back into the picture, had gotten some things worked out in his own life, moved back in. And then in grade 8, we moved from San Diego to the Central Valley, which was a culture shock. Still is a culture shock sometimes.
Sure.
But yeah, so I really grew up under the poverty line in crucial years in that single parent home, utilizing things like the Boys and Girls Club, and really took on a responsibility to care for my family and be as little of a burden as I could.
Sure.
So I'd bring home bread if someone was giving away bread or milk or whatever. And, my mom did not put that pressure on me. I just somewhere picked it up that, I wanted to support. They worked very hard at protecting us from their struggles and trying to create a healthy environment.
So when you have that kind of life in the raw, I gather you really kind of pick and choose what you depend on or what you rely on today. What you kind of look back to and say, okay, I'll take this strength and I'll take that strength and I'll take another one over here, and because it all isn't good. But there are parts of it that become good. I think when you have that kind of multiple background, I think you have to pick your parts and hope you pick the right ones. Put something good together. You obviously have.
Yeah, and I know that my family worked really hard, my mom especially, instilling a faith in us, instilling a sense of, God is our hope and our protection and our everything, and through those hard things, and that has followed me all through
So that's
life.
been a base.
Absolutely.
That's been a base right on through.
Yeah.
So the two of you then came together. What was the nature of that? You come from different backgrounds. Totally. You wouldn't think that the two of you would come together with that kind of a background. What was the glue?
The glue, of course, like she mentioned, was our faith in Jesus Christ. We met at church.
I see.
And, being that we were so different, there were some aspects that we found in common. First of all, we had a totally similar worldview. We saw reality, we saw parenting, we saw the future, our past, through the lens of our faith in Jesus Christ.
So that was your worldview. It was kind of a
foundational,
faith-based worldview as you look outward.
But what I found in some Christian circles here in the Central Valley is that many people had not traveled beyond California.
That's true.
And so with Marcy, I met this wonderful woman who had, at this time, already traveled to 27 different countries or so. I think I'm right with the number.
Okay.
Anyway, she was, I might be over-exaggerating, but she just had a diverse and rich sense of what it is to be a Christian, but a global Christian.
So you have a worldview, but also world experience that kind of puts that together. Yeah.
So we immediately connected as friends, and it had a similar language, a similar outlook on
so
life.
it's more natural than it appears.
Well,
He could have had his pick.
We had a lot of things in common, actually.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
You have a lot more in common with each other than you might have with somebody else.
But as you know, Dr. Hedberg, any marriage is a moving together of two rivers, and there's going to be some rapids. And so we had to also navigate what it was to grow up in such different, would you say, backgrounds
and cultures.
And understand each other
Yeah.
at a more deeper level, too.
But there was some common value.
Yeah, there was.
Some common ground that you really could build on.
Yeah.
And that common ground is what has sustained us. Like, there have been times where I thought our marriage would not last if it weren't for our commitment to someone greater than just Jeremy.
Sure.
And so that initial foundation is what has been our thread.
Yeah. You got to have that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what makes marriage, but that's what makes family life. Strong and really valuable, to the life of a kid. Well, then take it to the next level, to the next generation. Yeah.
I agree. There's an authority in our life outside of our marriage, an authority that we committed to that brings us strength that we can rely on. We don't have to rely on our own ideas about things. We can rely on.
So the two of you come from this diverse background, and you end up, by decisions you made and plans you made in your life, in Germany, of all other places. Now, neither of you are German. But you end up in Germany with a mission involved, with a plan, with a purpose. You didn't go to just Germany and say, I'm going to go find something to do.
Right.
You went there with a purpose, and that was to teach school. And you were to teach school in what is known as the Black Forest Academy. Give us just kind of an essence of what that is. What is the Black Forest Academy?
Black Forest Academy is a school in the southern part of Germany that has been ministering or supporting missionary families for the last 60 years. Families that work in Africa, in the Middle East, in Eurasia.
So the parents are elsewhere in the world as missionaries, and the kids are at this school in Germany.
Most of our student body are boarded students, from freshmen to in the high school level. But there's many agencies that have grown up around our school because of its great education. Agencies that are nonprofit Christian organizations, and they put their younger kids into our school as well.
So I mean, is it like 20, 30 kids?
This is more than that. we range about 350.
Oh, it's a substantial school then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very substantial. 300 kids about, and all grades, high school, elementary, right?
Yes.
Well, VFA starts at grade 5, but those are all home students. Our boarding program begins with grade 9.
I see.
And then we have a partnership with a German Christian school that covers grades 1 through 4. So we do provide that. We offer the staff for that school. Our kids attended that school. It's half day German, and then the other half day in English.
So they get English and German.
Yeah. So I mean, the number one reason that families are leaving the mission field is education.
Sure.
Many countries have forbidden homeschooling, or are not allowed to attend schools because of the faith difference if they're in a Muslim country, and so they've made space.
I can see where a parent might be off in some part of the world that would be very impoverished and basically no education at all. And they're there to work with those people, and they can't spend all their time educating their kids at home. So this is an alternative. This is a very valid alternative of where the kids can get a good education while the parents are doing and then the parents, I guess, and the kids get together periodically.
They see each other a lot. Yeah, it's good.
That's a good part of it.
Yes.
Well, we're going to look at that a little bit more detail. It's a good place to take a break, by the way. And we're talking to Jeremy and Marcy Pusey. And we're going to come back and kind of look at the German family a little bit. You've moved to Germany. You've been there now
6 years.
6 years. You got a good view of the kind of the German culture, the German family, the German marriage a little bit. Let's talk about that when we come back from our break, okay? Who are the Germans and what do you appreciate, in the Germans, coming from a vast background that you come from?
Okay.
Now, what about the Germans, okay? Go get your coffee and come on back in a few minutes.
The Green Gables Care Home is a 24-hour assisted living facility for the elderly located in Clovis, California, offering spacious private and semi-private rooms which are wheelchair approved, catering to the special person in your life who needs attention and wants to live in a loving home environment. The Green Gables Care Home has assisted living in secured homes for elderly with Alzheimer's, memory loss, and for your loved ones needing assistance with their activities of daily living. Call 559-297-9438 and visit greengablescarehome.com.
Sometimes good intentions hurt rather than help. For just $1.76 per meal, the Fresno Rescue Mission offers more than food. We offer hope. Please donate today.
Do you need a locksmith? Layman's Lock and Safe Service and Repair is available for you. 559-228-1805.
Gained a lot, learned a lot, and got a lot of love. If it weren't for the knowledge that I had gained from the classes at PCC, I probably wouldn't be the mom I am today. See, there it goes.
I would love you to meet my son, Aaron. My situation was very difficult. I didn't know how my life was going to turn out.
We graduated in June 2010 and we got married in July. And through family, the Pregnancy Care Center changed our lives.
The Pregnancy Care Center was a huge vital part in helping me walk through that pregnancy, in educating me and loving on me during that time.
Choosing a Medicare plan can be difficult and frustrating. Susan Hatch can guide you through the Medicare maze and help find the right plan for you. Susan helps people understand the confusing and drastic changes that occur every year in Medicare. Susan will only recommend plans that will protect your assets and allow you to continue to see your personal doctor. As a 100% independent agent, Susan is not controlled by any particular insurance company to steer a person onto any one particular plan. Susan was awarded the #1 Medicare supplement agent in California. Look for Susan's Medicare question and answers every Monday in the Fresno Bee. Call Susan at 559-307-2287 and visit MedicareToday.net.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Okay, thanks for coming back, and we're talking to Marcy and Jeremy Pusey, Germany Black Forest Academy, teacher and counselor at the Black Forest Academy, working with children whose parents are missionaries somewhere else in the world, and often in a remote area of the world, and their kids are in this boarding school in Germany, and they work with these kids as teachers and counselors, and sharing their experience with us a little bit today. But you've been in Germany now 6 years, you said, and you obviously came back from, or you went there from a diverse background of Columbia and Nebraska and Southern California, Fresno area. You know, this diverse background. You go to a German community, you go to a German country. What do you notice about the German family or the German mindset about how family is operated and structured? Is there something unique?
Yeah. Well, I know I spent most of my day working at the school. But I know Marcy got a chance to really interact with German families from the day we got there, because we enrolled our kids into German kindergarten.
So you went to the German kindergarten schools, I see.
And so I think you would have...
They involve their family in their schooling in a considerable way, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, it's also illegal to homeschool in Germany. Yeah. So there's a lot of value around education and
they value education very highly.
Very high.
Very highly.
Very high value.
Yeah, a lot of systems around it. One of the things I noticed right away was how involved fathers were.
Oh.
Which just came as a surprise to me. And so I would see fathers walking the stroller down the sidewalk, no moms around, just out with the stroller with the baby or wearing them in the carrier. And I thought, wow, what a neat thing that there's so much parental involvement, but also that fathers.
Did you find that also in the school, like the kindergarten? I mean, is it mom that goes to school and participates, or is it dad as well?
Really, it was both.
Yeah, I had a chance to work in a German school for a year, and I did see a lot of involvement of men or fathers. Now, my context coming out of the United States was on a particular side of Fresno that single mother homes were the norm.
And so, phenomenon,
so it's hard to compare American, but from my experience, a lot of fathers are.
But you notice that in Germany,
I noticed
that father's involved in the child's life, the education of that child, not necessarily more than anybody else,
right?
But he's certainly involved, and you appreciated that. I mean, I guess that's what you saw as kind of a value that was very attractive to you, and you kind of like that. Yeah. What else? Well, what's another feature of the German family, German marriage, German home?
A funny story was that in kindergarten, we noticed that kindergartners often were allowed to walk to school by themselves.
Or were trained to, by first grade.
Or were being trained to, so that by first grade, they could walk by themselves to school, which was kind of a shock to me.
And school wouldn't be just one block away. It might be a mile.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean,
I noticed that kids or parents often took their kids out into the wild, into the outdoors, to climb trees, to experience nature. This is a very high value among Germans, is to connect
the environment
children
and nature,
to nature.
And using that as a way to have family life.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Walks.
Yeah.
You often see families walking. You often see kids playing outside in parks.
I've always heard that kind of Sunday is a family day or a walking day. I'm not sure.
Yep.
Maybe it's a family walking day.
Yeah,
Both.
Is that true?
Yeah, that's the Sunday walk is a very cultural thing for Germans to do.
The stores are closed, so that's what you do. You rest. One of the other things that stood out to me mentioning kindergarten was that they would have the kids help cook their lunches or help prepare a meal for a fest of some kind. But all the kids were given glass cups, real silverware, knives to chop the onion or the apple.
Real
and I remember
knives.
sitting back going,
adult knives.
"Oh my goodness!" But they do it. They're able, and so that transformed something in our own home where I said, "Oh, my kids can handle real dishes. Then I'm going to let them." And we've got all our fingers still.
You have to go to the plastics and the papers and all the rest.
There wasn't a hovering that I had found among my peers here in the United States. And when I say hovering, more of a sheltering of kids.
Sometimes we call that the helicopter parent.
Yeah.
You know, that just kind of watches that child in kindergarten and watches the child going here and wherever that child goes, right there and
from everything.
protective.
Yeah.
You don't see that so much.
No.
I mean, they're trained to be more independent. They're trained to be more self-sufficient. Is that what you're saying?
They're very focused on training and getting them prepared. But once they do, they let go. And it's kind of a shock to some of us American parents who were like, "You're letting your kids do what?"
Sure. I'm wondering if the German kids do well in school, partly because they're trained to learn.
Yeah, it's true.
Not necessarily learn to read, although that's part of it, but learn to use a knife. Learn to walk to school, learn to be independent.
Yeah.
So learning carries over into the school situation as well. If you learn to learn one thing, you can learn to learn another, and then another, and then another. So is there a kind of a teaching attitude and a belief that you want to teach your children to be independent, and that carries over into why they do so well in school? Would that be true?
I would say that's true. As a teacher, I found, working with German teachers, was that there is a particular way of doing everything, of taking notes. This is how we're going to do it. Let's train you how to do it. Handwriting. Everyone's going to do it uniformly. This is how we're going to do it. And how you organize your book bag to how you sharpen your pencil. This was something that I didn't find with my public school experience or working with public school colleagues. We just didn't focus on that. So it seemed like a part of the culture is there's a right way to do everything.
Yeah. In other words, there's the German way.
There's the German way to do it.
Which is probably true, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they have a way of doing things.
Yeah.
They call it the right way.
Yeah.
But it's a German way of doing things. And a child, I guess, is expected just to learn that way, and there's no problem.
Yeah.
I mean, they just do it.
Yeah.
I will say what's interesting about that is talking with the German principal one year. He said that the difference he noticed among American students in his class, or English-speaking students and German students, were that he could tell all the rules to the class, and all of the English-speaking students would say, "Okay, yep, okay, okay," and all of the German students would say, "Why, why, why?" And he really believed that was in the aftermath of the propaganda that was happening in the schools, where the German people felt, man, how did we come under such leadership blindly and not see what we were getting into? It's because we just followed and obeyed. And so now it's actually swung the other way, where they're taught.
That, of course, led to World War II and World War I. I mean, that's...
So
if you don't ask questions, if you just go along, I mean, those kind of things happen.
So I think even within a classroom or even at home, parents, teachers instill this into the next generation to ask questions, and it's okay. It's not a challenge.
It's
actually respected or valued from the adults.
Did you enjoy teaching the German children?
Yeah,
I mean, are they fun to teach?
Yes, I love German kids. I love German people.
Really?
I had a great time. Yeah.
When Jeremy transitioned back to the English side of BFA, the German
BFA
parents...
is Black Forest Academy.
Black Forest Academy, yeah. His the German parents from that class threw him a party.
I see.
Separate. And I remember a lot of the other families saying, wow, we haven't had that happen, where the German parents have been so involved with their English teacher in that way. And so it was kind of a unique thing to see that they had really connected as teacher and families.
Marcy, you do counseling, basically. You're not teaching the German kids, but you're available to counsel the children and their families, I assume, become part of that. Same problems we have, or different problems? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
how would you size that up?
Well, the same and then different. I mean, some of these families are coming from places of trauma where they have served in a place where there have been attacks on their ministry or on their church, or colleagues of theirs have been abducted. And so these kids come in with a lot of different backgrounds in that way. And so sometimes we're dealing with that. I actually do a lot more work with their parents or with other community members. We have some good staff on the campus at Black Forest Academy. I work as a member care service for our missionary staff. But a lot of the same things.
A lot of the same, but a lot of trauma.
A lot of trauma.
A lot of trauma. They've been exposed to violence, I guess, enormous amount of violence. I guess that's the kind of trauma that they see. It's a little different.
Yeah.
Trauma's trauma in a sense, but so they get political trauma, they get cultural trauma, military trauma.
Yeah.
I don't know how you define it
All
all,
of it.
but all these people and these kids then they're observers of the trauma.
Yeah.
I mean, basic children.
Yeah.
The parents experience it, but children kind of observe it.
Yes.
But it affects the kids the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you handle this? How do you help these kids?
I've tried to do an event each year that began with a friend here in Fresno at our local church, a memory tree event at Christmas time, which started out as recognizing losses of human life, of family members that you've had that you want to remember during the season.
I see.
But as I invited students, they were bringing losses that weren't just tied to the loss of a life,
Sure.
but a loss of dreams or a loss of a relationship. Because they moved or whatever it might be. And so that was one way that kind of opened my eyes to how they need to process it at any time of year, but especially around the holidays. And then I think just a lot of being open and being safe and having good conversation that they can share their experiences and know that it's a process of healing.
You ever do art therapy?
Yes,
The kids?
art therapy.
Art therapy
Yep.
would seem to be a big thing for people in trauma.
Yeah.
So they
Yep.
can draw their trauma, they can draw their experience, they can draw what they felt, they
Yep.
can draw what they saw.
Well, and actually, we've had 1 million Syrian refugees come into Germany in the
really?
last couple of years, and we've had a few live in our home. We've gone to the different camps and done work, and art is a huge way because we don't always share language. And so, but art crosses and transcends language.
Music also. Music and art transcends culture.
So we come together and they express themselves, and we give them supplies, and we do it along with them, and it's really powerful.
Is it?
And the arts are very connect to an intuitive part of ourselves rather than a logical, reasoning, mental part of ourselves. So I think because trauma deals sometimes with emotions, connected to memory and all that, I think the arts, music or creativity really draw on those emotions and help, I think, us to bring them to the surface and then start to deal with them a bit.
You are in the right place at the right time. I can see that.
Yeah.
I mean, now you're talking about a Syrian population. You know, in your cultural background, you must just blend into all these different cultures.
I do. I think I was at a train station, and I had an Algerian guy walk up to me and start to speak Arabic, and I had to turn to him and say, hey, sorry. And then it happened 5 minutes later, so, yeah.
Well, they're all eager to connect.
Yeah.
And you look like maybe similar as might be available, so they approach you. But you do the best you can.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a break. Good spot to take a break. I want to come back and kind of just pick up a little conversation now with you in terms of kind of what are you doing in Germany besides teaching, and you're writing a book and you keep writing books, and you got a lot of stuff going. You got a lot of different things going. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And so go get a cup of coffee and come on back in a couple minutes, okay? See you in a bit.
need a dentist who has a passion for superior aesthetics and comfort, you need Dr. Christopher Wong with Cedar North Dental. Call 559-432-4948 or visit cedarnorthdental.com.
Hey!
Try to close the club.
Tanya, come here.
At Boys and Girls Clubs, it's not just about trying new things.
Kitchen in my hometown.
It's not about learning the right steps
4,
or making contact.
5, 6, 7, 8.
It's not about exploring the future. It's about helping them build it. It's about taking steps to greatness. About making a connection. It's about proving every kid and teen has what it takes. It's about people in our clubs who bring out the greatness in every kid who enters our doors. It's not just about being on stage. It's about walking across it. Great futures start here, and here, and here.
Sat7 is a Christian media network that uses uncensored satellite television to broadcast across the Middle East and North Africa, and is also available globally online.
CentralValleyTalk.com. All right, welcome back, and glad you're joining us again with Marcy and Jeremy Pusey, serving in Germany in a private school, Black Forest Academy. And the academy is really basically a school for children whose parents are in other parts of the world, usually as missionaries. And the kids are in Germany going to school, in a boarding school. And Jeremy is a teacher, and Marcy is one of their counselors. And besides that, Marcy, you are an author, you are a writer. Mm-hmm. And besides that, the two of you have adopted children. Mm-hmm. And you understand the whole adoption process, good and bad and the ugly part of that. But tell us about just a little bit about adoption. What would you advise a parent? And then we're going to talk about your book a little bit, but give us 2 or 3 points of what you really would, if there's a parent out there interested in adoption, mm-hmm. what would you tell them?
All right. To read my book.
Okay, there's book. There's your book.
Reclaiming Hope, Overcoming the Challenges of Parenting, Foster, and Adopted Children. I really wrote it both as a therapist and as a mama who knows. We've adopted 2 children out of foster care, and we fostered 7 other children and also birthed children. And so we did learn some things in that experience. And I'll let you add too, but I'll say one of the things we've learned is that everyone we believe, has a role to play in an adoption story. We do believe that God has called us to care for the orphans and widows, but that doesn't mean that everyone should bring them into their home. Mm-hmm. Not everyone is equipped or has the capacity or the community connections or resources to do that well, but you can support a family who's doing it. Mm-hmm. You can help finance an international adoption. You mm-hmm. can provide respite. And so I think just really taking time to investigate if you have and if your family has the capacity, the support, the therapeutic support even you might need as a family, as a couple, to take in children who've come from trauma before mm-hmm. making that decision. Yeah.
I think we went into it with a romantic notion that we would save the world. Mm-hmm. And
that's getting not a bad motive. It's kind of an impossible one, maybe. But
big hearts. We had big hearts and a lot of good intentions, and we don't regret it, but we do think that just like parenting, any parenting position is a difficult one. Mm-hmm.
Is this more difficult, though? When you take an orphan in
Children
your
of trauma.
home, I mean, they come with a background that you don't know.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, something you find out later on that they've had certain experiences. So I guess you have to be prepared to deal with whatever life they've had before they came to you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think one other tip of advice, I guess, would be to spend as much time as possible with families who are already fostering and adopting,
Oh,
either going to
that's a good
support
point.
groups or being a part of that community, because you're going to see firsthand and experience firsthand and have those conversations available to you to ask questions you might have, or to say, why do you treat that kid different? Well, that kid has different needs.
Sure.
So it looks different, and just kind of prepare yourself that way. And then if you decide to do it, you've already got this community built up around you to support you, which is so powerful.
So, really, if you're going to adopt a child, you need a support system in place somehow, a network of people that other families that have adopted, or other people who just care about what you're doing and support you.
Especially our particular area, which was foster to adopt. We fostered our two.
Oh, so that's where you have them for a year or whatever as a foster child, and then you actually adopt them legally.
But
that's our experience.
Is that a good way to do it, by the way?
I think in some ways we have more post-adoption support because we did it locally.
I see.
If you do an international adoption or a private domestic adoption, it is 100% on you to finance whatever help that kid or your family is going to need in the days that follow.
Sure.
We had adoption assistance through the age of 18, and that could be extended to 21. And so that meant they had Medi-Cal, so they had insurance coverage, they had therapeutic support. And so there's plus and minuses, I think, to whichever route you take.
Sure.
But the reality is, post-adoption, there is very little support, and what support there is very expensive.
Yes.
And I mean by support, I mean therapeutic interventions.
But what you're saying is that the adoptive parent is kind of on their own, to find support.
Yep.
And to create their own support. Churches, I suppose, are not very helpful to adoptive parents. Would that be
some
true?
Are. Depends on the church and their exposure to foster and adopted families.
There's actually a church here in Fresno called
Action Community.
Action Community, which I think in their just beginnings found that their DNA was made up of other families who had done the foster adopt process, and they found a community and a support system that has blossomed to the point where they have monthly seminars and support groups and
for the whole family,
and just very powerful community right now.
So if you're an adopted family, if you have adoption in your family, finding a church like that, wherever you are in the community, finding a church like that would be very helpful. But often churches are not available for that. They don't do those kind of things. So I gather you have to kind of create your own. Create your own little group, your own little family, your own little foster group. I mean, I guess you can.
Yeah. Why not?
I mean, you got to be a little creative, and you have to talk. You have to find out who else is adopted, and then say, let's get together, and you build a little small community of support.
Kind of what happened to us is we just found like-minded people in our church, and we tended to just communicate about what's going on with you, and we learned to lean on each other and pray for each other, and it was good.
Yeah. Why is that important? Why would you encourage a family to adopt? Whether they can have their own children or not. But why would you encourage a family to consider that?
Well, in the global view, investing in the children of tomorrow, like quote from the beginning, these children are going to grow up to be adults, and so I believe, just as responsible citizens, we invest in them. As a community, if we have the strength and the resources to do this, now we have a worldview that is connected to a mandate from God to care for the orphans and those who are vulnerable in this society, and so we felt like that we were giving our part to these kids, but in the end, we fell in love with them, and we wanted to commit to them.
So then you want to commit to that and continue to do that and build on that.
It was out of love.
So as believers, we recognize that we've been adopted into God's family. We've been grafted in. And so there have been so many moments where I thought, oh, this is so hard, but Lord, I'm hard too, I'm sure, in falling short, and yet you continue to lavish me with your love and to welcome me in. And so I feel like I understood God's adoptive heart for me in a very fresh way that I didn't before taking in children.
Given your background, I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
You know, when you had family and then they divorce and they come back together and you're alone, and I can appreciate the value of really feeling connected and that you belong to somebody.
Yeah.
That somebody reaches out and takes you in and owns you.
Yeah. Well, and that's another piece of bringing in adopted children. We've learned that our love is not able to heal anyone. There's this idea that, oh, if I just love them enough, they'll be healed and their trauma will go away.
Yeah, we believe that.
But it doesn't, and that's what we've learned. But the reality is we had all that time to continue sowing into them that Christ can be their identity, that He is their home, that He is their belonging. And so as they're grappling with who am I and why was I abandoned and left and not able to attach, we're just constantly reminding them that there is something bigger and greater than any human who's disappointed them, who can be their...
Marcy, you wrote a book for parents who are adopting children or have adopted or considering that, Claiming Hope. But you also wrote a book for children, I gather.
Did.
These are children that have been adopted?
This book this tells the story of a child from the removal of her home through the adoption process. It's a little Pollyanna because it's a children's book, so she does end up adopted. That's not every kid's story. But I do have a note in here, too, to educators, therapists, parents. This is her story. But the message is really about connecting the threads from their past life with their birth families, through foster families, through an adoptive family, and giving kids permission to experience the many emotions, the questions that come along as they can relate to Speranza, the character.
I see. So if a parent wanted to get those books, where would they get them?
They can get them on Amazon.
I see. They're available on Amazon. So this one is entitled, what's the title of this one?
Speranza Sweater. And the Spanish edition is actually going to come out sometime this month in October 2018. There's a few other children's picture books I have that tie in, but not as directly necessarily. And so you can Google my name, Marcy Pusey, or you can go to my website, marcypusey.com. Amazon search will bring it all up.
But you have two other books.
I do have two other books.
Just briefly give us a kind of overview of what else you've written.
According to Corbin is a fun story of a little boy who lives his day entirely through his imagination. So the text on one page is how he sees the world, but when you flip the page, you get to see what's really going on. And if you pay attention, the story is as much about his mom's journey dealing with living in the imagination of her kid as it is his journey being a kid. And then Turcules is exactly what you might have just assumed. It's about a turkey chick with Herculean strength. And he's on a journey to love himself for who he is, even though learning to eat and fly and play are all catastrophic to everyone around him. And they also, his family, learn the value of his differences throughout the story.
So each book is a story, but it teaches a moral. There's kind of
it's caught.
Something you want them to learn.
Yeah, there's something in there that they can catch through a fun story.
So going to Amazon would pick that up easily, or your website, which is on the screen. And
I do school visits, I do library visits, I do some speaking for adults in the foster adoption
tell us
arena.
about that. So you're available for speaking in the community in various we'll call them children venue libraries and so on.
I've done workshops for families at adoption agencies or foster agencies, keynoted at a few different orphan care events. We have one coming up in January if you're in the valley near Fresno. We have an orphan care event coming up.
And you do one other thing, as long as we're on it.
All right.
You coach writers,
I do
kids who want to write a book.
I actually coach
anyone,
anyone who wants to write a book. So we're working on developing a program for kids, adults to help kids write and publish their books. And then I help anyone from having no idea to having a published book in their hands.
That's great.
Yeah.
You're having fun.
I'm having a great time. I love it. I love it all.
Well, let's take a break and we'll come up and back and wrap it up.
Okay.
And thanks for joining us, but come on back in a couple of minutes and we'll finish off our little discussion here with the Puseys and get kind of their advice to you as a parent, what they would like to share from their heart to you as a parent to parent. Okay?
Hey there, world. I'd like to introduce you to someone really special and really cool. This is my mom. My mom is an amazing person. She is a writer. She is a newly transplanted Texan. She is a woman of faith and she loves 80s music. She also is a person with a very rare genetic muscular disorder called Pompe disease.
Pompe disease is a terminal, progressive illness. It's a genetic enzyme deficiency which ultimately leads to the destruction of your skeletal muscles. Those are the muscles that control how you move, your arms, your legs, and your torso. When your jaw or esophageal muscles are affected, you can no longer eat and require a feeding tube. When your diaphragm is impacted, you can't breathe on your own any longer and require a trach ventilator. When your legs are impacted, you will no longer be able to walk without assistance. You can lose bladder and bowel control. It affects children and adults, and eventually it kills you. It is rare, but it's real.
Now, we're lucky. My mom's still able to walk, though she uses a cane to get around most of the time. She's still able to breathe unassisted, but she can't go upstairs, and she needs some kind of assistance to get up from a seated position, like if she's sitting in a chair. She has to examine every activity ahead of time to know if there are things like handicapped parking, accessible buildings, and even functional bathrooms. All of her activities depend heavily on the weather. A windy day can be just as dangerous as an icy one. She jokes that you can tell what kind of day she's having by whether she can lift her arms high enough to do her hair. And she recently moved into a one-story house specifically with the idea that she's one day going to need a wheelchair to get around. Those are the kind of things she has as everyday concerns. Her normal everyday fears are things like dropping her keys or falling in public and not being able to get up. That actually happened a couple of years ago. She fell and fractured her pelvis because she was unable to break her fall.
I receive an enzyme replacement therapy every 2 weeks for life. It's a 6-hour IV. It helps slow the progression of the disease, but it is not a cure. And it costs about $100,000 every time you sit in a chair. Insurance takes care of most of that if you're lucky, but not everyone is, and the expenses add up very quickly. Things like wheelchairs, accessible vehicles, special housing, travel costs to medical conferences, doctor's appointments, and clinical trials. Luckily, there is a group that helps families with Pompe handle these costs. The United Pompe Foundation is a group connecting funds with real people who need help. This was founded by a father whose son has Pompe disease, and they could not find the resources that they needed. They assist patients and their families with medical costs and other expenses that they need to survive day to day. Every little bit helps.
There are a lot of things in life that we really take for granted, and sometimes the scariest things in the world are the things that you can't see. So today we're asking for you to help us shed a little light on a rare and scary disease. Please share this video with your friends, your family, strangers, anybody that you come across. Education is a big thing, it makes a big difference, and another way to make a really huge difference in someone's life is to go check out the United Pompe Foundation. Their website is in this video description. Click on it, check it out, and go ahead and donate some money if you're able to. Again, this is an organization giving real help to real people who are amazing and need it, like my mom. I love her, and thank you so much for helping us out. Thank you so much.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Okay, welcome back, and glad you're joining us again on Dr. Teach Me to Parent, and we're here with Jeremy and Marcy Pusey from Germany. And they've adopted children, they've written books, they're counseling, they're teaching children in the elementary and high school level in Germany. You guys are doing all kinds of things. And, you know, we talked earlier about your family, your background. We talked about the German family a little bit, the American family. We have an audience of parents out there. What do you want to tell them? What advice, what suggestions, what guidance, what kind of thoughts would you like to share with our audience of parents today?
Well, I feel like I'm still in the midst of parenting. But there's 3 things that I've learned and tried to apply in my parenting that I think are general knowledge. I think you would probably attest to this, and maybe even in your book. But I think, and they're not in any particular order, but I thought of 3 of them. And the number one thing to me is that I've learned that quality time is not necessarily where I should put my emphasis. It's really quantity, how much time I spend with my kids. I've done it both ways, where I was like, I'll just give them one big great day, and then I can, do whatever I want.
You know, we've heard that, and you're saying it's kind of a myth.
I think it's a myth.
Give them little time, but give them a great experience when you do have time. And you're saying that's not the way it goes.
And it might be a mix of both. You know, I have great memories of times that my dad or my mom spent with me. But usually these times had to do with the amount of time that they spent with me. And so those great memories. So I just try to give them big chunks of time that I can just be with them rather than try to make this great thing happen.
I have a phrase that sometimes says something like 20 minutes twice a day is better than 40 minutes once a day.
Yeah, great.
And maybe that's what you're really saying is that, parents need to just not only connect with their kid, but keep on connecting with their kids and having this kind of ongoing.
Yeah, ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
And that connection should still be quality in the sense that we need to set down our devices, our phones, our computers, close them up. So it's not like, oh, we're in the same room for 20 minutes. How nice, we're connecting. It is about modeling for them what we hope for them, but also giving them our attention during that time.
Which is my second.
Which we're working on.
My second thing that I've learned is modeling the behaviors that I want to see in my kids. I think that's just, it seems simple,
but essential.
But we sometimes just forget that.
Say it.
Stop yelling while I'm yelling, or don't snap at your sister while I'm just snapping at. So there's a sense of slowing down your parenting and just stepping outside yourself and thinking, how can I model the behaviors that I want to see in my kids? And lastly, I found it's super important or a high value for me that I give my kids physical affection. Now, I have a 9-year-old to a 19-year-old. And what I found is, as they get older, they kind of...
Yeah, touching is a little different thing with older kids, but you can still do it.
I think you
it's
should
the appropriateness
still do it.
Of it.
I think you should still do it and still pursue them in that aspect. And I think it's high value. I think we as humans, we need touch.
Even an adolescent loves to be hugged.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Yeah, there's appropriate ways of doing that. And there's ways that some children will accept it, and another child will accept it in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Like,
you have to know your child.
My daughter will accept it at any time. My son, though, I'll have to ask him sometimes. I just say, "Do you need some physical affection?" And he'll, "No." Okay. Mm-hmm. And then I'll ask him another time, maybe later on in the day, "You need some physical affection?" Okay, I'll take a hug. And so, when he asks for it, I really give it to him.
You kind of learned each other's cues, so to speak, on that.
Yeah.
What have you learned?
Yeah, I think the only other thing I would add is to parents to be able... something that God has really instilled in me in this last year is how my value is not connected to my children's behavior. So it's easy if they misbehave to feel embarrassed. Oh, that's a reflection on me. Or
it makes you look like a bad mother or something. Yeah.
And people are quick to judge that. So that doesn't come without reason, right? Mm-hmm. That people have really instilled in you that how your kids behave is must be how you did it. But having raised 2 children of trauma and doing the best we can and 4 kids, they all just have free will and do what they want. And one day I woke up and God finally clicked it in. Marcy, you are a good mom. You are a good mom because you've shown up. You know how to ask forgiveness, not because you're perfect, because you're present and you seek me in everything. And suddenly something disconnected where I could love them, but not need them to prove to me that I was a good mom, which I think I had been relying on a bit. And so if there's any kind of encouragement is pray for that and ask for that separation where you can love them, do your best before God, but they don't need to prove to you that you're a good mom. That is just between you and God.
And kids have influence from a lot of different sources. You're not the only source.
Right.
We sometimes believe that maybe it's all up to me. And it's not. You can utilize resources. You can utilize friends. You can utilize kids' friends. And cue them into how they can be of help to you and as a parent, help your children. Utilize other people.
We can take too much credit and we can take too much blame. And at the end of the day, we just do our best before God and trust them to Him.
Go ahead.
Well, as my wife was speaking about God and about the authority of that in our lives, it just reminded me that what I've learned from a young parent to in the middle right now is that we do have authority in our kids' life. It's not something that we are need to take or need to earn. I think it's given to us. Now, depending on where your worldview is, I think it's just a reality, just like gravity is. We have the ability to influence our kids and the mandate to show them right and wrong. And one of the things that I learned recently from a seminar I did was we kind of paint a picture to our kids that you are in this we call it the blessing or the happy place or the place of peace when you obey us, when you respect our authority, and this authority has been given to us by God. But as soon as you step out of that and you disobey us, or you lie, or you do all these behaviors and things that lead to unhappiness, or that negativity will come to you. And so we try to teach them to come back to this place, and actually we have to sometimes pursue them.
Yeah, you have to be active.
Bring them back in.
You have to be active. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know what you want. You have to know what is needed, and you have to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, to kind of wait for a kid to tell you what he wants, it's not going to happen.
Right.
I mean, you have to use your best judgment, and you have to hope that will pay off.
Yeah.
And sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate, but you know. You made a point, Marcy, which is an interesting one in terms of what you think other people think of you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a big thing in our life. You know, we talk about self-esteem.
Yeah.
You know, what you think of yourself, but really it's that social esteem of what you think other people think of you.
Uh-huh.
You know, either as a mother or as a woman or as a person or, whatever. And we get really bogged down with that because we make up what we think other people think.
A lot of making up.
We guess that they think negatively of when they really don't at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then we suffer.
Yeah.
Because we've created this story of what you think somebody else thinks of you, and you're all wrong on it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to correct that. You got to stop that kind of behavior.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you do that?
Oh, yeah. I both do it and I stop it and I catch it in our kids. So we even use that language. Are you making up a story right now that I don't like you because I said no? Well, let's work through why I might have said no. And so there's a lot of good intentionality around being clear with our thoughts and taking them captive and making sure they're...
Well, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah.
You guys were great.
Thank you.
You guys are great.
Thanks for having us.
All the way here from Germany, and you're going to go back and pick up your teaching, your counseling your responsibilities there, and of course, obviously wish you well in that adventure, but it's nice that you were able to share a little bit with us today and our audience and the friends that you have here in town. I hope you're having a good visit as well. I have a little quote for you, kind of the parenting quote for the day. And it's on the screen there in front of you, but look at it this way. Family happiness is homemade. You know, we talk about homemade pie, we talk about homemade cake, right? But really, that's where family happiness is made as well. It's in the home, and you create your own happiness. You create your own level of happiness, style of happiness, genuine happiness. You create it in your own home. So happiness is homemade. Kind of get on with it this week and have a happy week. Bye for now.
I remember sitting in church with my parents growing up, and I'd be listening to the sermon sometimes, but a lot of times I'd just be drawing faces over and over again. And the eyes were the most important, and then usually the mouth. I'd sometimes forget about eyebrows and ears and noses, but I just was enthralled with the human face.
Visual art is a means of accessing that element of God's character that can't be accessed any other way. God is a God of shape relationships, textures, patterns, color. This is not window dressing. This is not just some little superficial thing that we add as a luxury item to our lives, but actually art goes to the heart of what it means to be a disciple.
I think Gordon's helped me see who I want to be in a lot of ways. There's so much growth that can take place when you're in conversation with other artists, completely erasing those barriers and just sharing life with each other.
Katie's highly motivated to try to communicate something about the person. She's always trying to find not just the resemblance, not just the likeness, but it's got to feel like them. Insight can't be artificially produced in another person. You can't teach it. But you can provide circumstances under which it can take place or it can grow. What I'm trying to model for my students is a highly focused, highly disciplined studio practice.
Bruce Herman's always trying new things. He's always continuing to seek things out and challenging me to do the same. The lighting and the emotion and the power in his paintings. It's not just a job, it's his life for him. You can tell that he loves it. You can tell that he enjoys being on this journey as an artist, as a teacher. You're going to be challenged. You're going to discover things that you didn't know existed. Gordon is a beautiful place and a wonderful place to learn and to grow. Enter it with an attitude of humility, being willing to be molded and changed.
I would love for students to come to Gordon because they feel that it might be possible to discover the structure, the beauty, the meaning behind this incredible world of wonders, and then to make something meaningful in response to it.
Choosing to go to Gordon was, I think, one of the best decisions I've made in my life. Expect to be changed.
CentralValleyTalk.com.